Welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. All right, everybody, welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast. We have a very special guest today, Miss Anna-Lysa Gayle.
Hey!
Yeah, in the building. Howard University, 3-time Emmy winner. Shout out to WHSV-TV, WLKY, WJLA, and she's a bomb storyteller from Jamaica to Brooklyn. Now she's back in the DMV. You know, I thought it would be excellent to have a storyteller, especially a 3-time Emmy Award winner. You know, that's just that word that you always hear, even before you even know what an Emmy is. And now I'm talking to an Emmy winner, and she's not even 21 yet. So happy to have you on the show, you know, because we like to highlight people that have contributed to the Howard legacy. So, you know, the fact that she's out here winning and reporting on the news in the DMV area, huge blessing. So welcome to the show, Anna-Lysa. Can you just tell me, you know, how did you get to where you are right now in your career?
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me on the show. This is a dope podcast. Love it. Keep up the good work. So how I got started was I decided I wanted to do more journalism. Once I graduated from high school, I used to do yearbook in high school, and I loved it. I loved, you know, just documenting people's lives and what they had going on. So I studied broadcast journalism at Howard and loved it. 4 years, School C. It was amazing. Changed only my minor. I was actually a theater minor at first, and then I was a poli-sci minor. And that's only because they had like a 4-hour lighting class. I'm sorry. I am not spending 4 hours in nobody's lighting class. So I switched my minor.
Lighting? What is lighting?
Exactly. Why did we? Yeah. The theater, I will say theater department is very difficult. So I decided to get out of that. Love the theater department. They produce great talent, but I knew I didn't want to be an actress full time. And that was not my route. And so I left Howard with about, I would say 5 or 6 internships, MTV, CNN, Showtime Networks.
So 5 or 6 internships?
Yeah.
How were you able to navigate that? That seems highly competitive, and you over here hoarding 5 or 6 internships. How did you get that?
Well, I was working part-time in Miss Dudley's office. Y'all know Miss Dudley. She doesn't play, and she gets all the opportunities.
She's like a Howard legend.
A legend, right?
I remember something happened where something with funding or something happened.
That was recent, and we made sure to start a hashtag to make sure Miss Dudley was staying put. And yes, we were glad that our internet campaign worked out. We were not happy that was they were trying to move some things around, and we made sure that was not the case. So we started a viral hashtag. I think it was Save Miss Dudley or something. Anyways, so we did that. And Miss Dudley in her office, she always got like the best opportunities, and she shared those opportunities with students in that office. And I was working there as part of my work study. So I was just able to soak up like a wealth of knowledge from her on how to format my resume, how to get the right internships, how to speak to people. She's just so great. If you've never sat with Miss Dudley and you are in the School C, please go visit her. Please go talk to her. She's just so amazing. So she taught me everything about the game that I needed to know about the internships, and I was able to secure, a lot of big internships that helped me to put together a reel, so that I could get a job at the end. And,
Wow.
yeah, it was amazing. She also did this, I think she still does, I'm not certain, but she does this career fair every year. And if you show up there, if you just show up, I mean, you're going to get something if you have your stuff together. You know, if you have your resume, if you seem like you have yourself together, someone hired me on the spot for an internship at FOX5 DC. At a career fair. Shout out to Micheline Bowman. And so appreciate that for, you know, the career fair being all that it is and was at Howard when I was there. It helped out majorly. Also got to give a big shout out to the T Howard Foundation. I did that for 2 years. They actually paid me to intern, which is
and that's
huge.
rare, right?
Yeah, that is
That's
very
rare.
rare. And I think that's so important because when you think about African Americans, Black people in general, I was an immigrant. I'm in my family, as great as my parents are, and they try to provide as much as they did while I was in school. I was still working to make
So
up.
let's get into
Yeah.
that. So you're originally from Jamaica.
Yeah.
So how do you? I mean, I'm sure you have an accent that we haven't heard yet. How do you come over here from Jamaica? You go to New York, which is a melting pot in and of itself,
Yeah.
and now you like you learning how to code switch. Now you end up at Howard, which is hyper competitive, and you find like was it? I know you talked about you wanted to be an actress, which is great because that helps with being in front of the camera and
You're
all of
right.
those things. How did you? What made you want to come to Howard?
So funny story. Uh so my last name in Jamaica is not very popular, and I don't think it's very popular here either. So whenever people see my last name has helped me in so many weird ways that I don't even know. So there's this girl at this point, she saw my name on Facebook and she was like, oh, she has her last name Gayle. Her name is Carrie Ann Gale. And she messaged me. She was like, "Oh, are you Jamaican?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Jamaican." It's very weird. It's so crazy. I have so many crazy stories about my last name and how people that I'm related to find me. So anyway, she found me through Facebook. She was like, "Oh yeah, my last name is Gayle. I go to Howard. I'm in the School of Business. I really think you should apply. I think it's a great school." I don't even remember why she messaged me. I think this is just God. At this point, God just works in so many mysterious ways. So she messaged me. She's like, "Yeah, I'm in the School of Business. I think you should really apply for Howard. It's a great school." And I'm like, sure, I'll apply. It sounds good. It sounds like a great school. Plus, I had saw Howard on College Hill a lot. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, and
yeah.
back in the BT College Hill days, I used to love seeing Howard on College Hill. So, anyways, she told me to apply. I applied. I got in. I think it was only 2, 3 schools I applied for because I was
What
not
other
in.
spots did you look at?
I think applied for Drexel because they sent me a free app and Drexel University in Philly. And I really wasn't looking. To be honest, I was very dedicated to coming to Howard. Once she told me about it, she made it sound so bomb. And then I came to visit for Accepted Students Day after I got in. I applied early and I found out pretty early. So, and I was pretty committed. My mom wasn't really too fond of the idea because she's like, you're moving out of Jersey. At the time I lived in New Jersey, you got to move 4 hours away. I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm like, it'll be just fine. And so I applied. I was pretty committed to coming to Howard. It was
So did
pretty
you
much
have
the
like
only
any like
choice.
extra fire under you because you had like 5 internships, which is pretty impressive. I
Yeah.
was in the School of B, and I know how competitive that was, and I know the School of C. When you talk to those School of C people, they always felt like they had a chip on their shoulder about something because their internships weren't paid. It was all about you got to do X, Y, and Z before you get to this certain point. Do you think that maybe being an immigrant, having immigrant parents, was that like a extra motivating factor for you to get where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. I think I just talked about this on the Food for a Jerk podcast recently. But anyways, I basically was telling my co-host that when your parents don't believe in you and they don't believe that that's what you should be doing. So my
Mm-hmm.
mom originally wanted me to be a nurse. Like that's every immigrant's dream is to be in the health field, or go be a nurse or a doctor or a dentist, or those are the only real things they're pushing really. uh Anything else is just play. Or school, go to be an engineer or in school of business or something. And I'm not good at math. I'm not gonna lie, math is not my favorite. Calculus was not my favorite. I was done. I was in honors classes and AP classes, but I really wasn't a fan of doing all the science and math things. So anyways, my mom was like, you should do the nursing thing. I think that would be good. And I was like, no, I really just don't want to be a nurse. I don't like hospitals. So anyways, I definitely think my mom not really believing in the idea of pursuing journalism, especially when you tell your parents that you're not going to make any money starting out, they look at you like you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially considering that my parents, they know
That
struggle.
happens a lot because in our community, you going to college, you got to get a job when you come out. We're not trying to hear you going for acting.
Right.
We're not trying to hear that.
Right.
You got to find yourself. No, you need to come out. Make some money and pass and pay it forward. So that's pretty dope that you followed your heart, especially at a young age, because we go through this thing where we're trying to discover our passions and you switching majors, but at the same time, you got loans. I don't know if you had loans, but
Yeah, oh, I had loans.
that's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. So out of those internships, I mean, tell me about, how those experiences were and how they helped you, in your career. And really how you got them, because it might be somebody listening and, I know the dynamic has changed where you can do so much stuff on social media now, but, just getting that type of FaceTime at a young age, how did that help you?
Oh man, it helped me immensely. I don't think I would be where I am today if it wasn't for the mentorship of Miss Dudley and people like the organization I said mentioned. The T Howard Foundation was huge, especially the last 2 years at Howard, my junior and senior year, to have them and their guidance, because the T Howard Foundation was way more than just an internship. So they had us for 2 weeks before we start our internship. We had to be basically in like a boot camp where you're just sitting through seminars, listening to what not to do, what to do, how to talk to people, how to send emails, how to dress, like covering all the little things that you're not thinking about that actually matter. So that helped out tremendously. I was just so blessed to be a part of that program. And to be paid. I mean, I don't think people understand how much that helped out. It was $10 an hour, but it was everything when you are, yeah.
Because, back then they'd be like, well, you get paid college credit.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I took the free internships. I did the free internships, but it was nice to have the paid summer internships because I was still living at UTC. I was living off campus, University Tower Center in Hyattsville, Maryland. And so I had to pay most of my rent. My parents helped out, but I was paying most of that rent. So I also had a part-time job at some point at Zara and Georgetown. Like I was just trying to make ends meet however I could. So yeah, so just having that paid internship and having the T Howard Foundation prepare me the right way. And those internships, once you get there under the guidance of the T Howard Foundation, they are a lot more, how do I put this? It's a lot, there was a lot more mentorship built in when you are with the T Howard Foundation, because the companies know you're with that foundation. They go a little harder to help you through the process, because the foundation is started with the principle of diversifying the media industry, and that is a heavy load to carry for a foundation. And I think the companies recognized how important it is to diversify the media industry. If you've ever seen the headlines where people are just not recognizing they need to have people in the room that help out with making decisions, we see it all the time. All the H&M branding issues that we saw recently, things like that. That's
cool,
why.
We're actually gonna have the like the chief diversity officer on here. She went to Howard.
Nice.
From H&M. She was in my year.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool that you mentioned that. So that T Howard, is that like a Howard thing, or
that's I promise you, God really is just lines everything up. I don't know what I was doing. I was just praying that, I always pray for God to guide my steps. That's like my main prayer. And everything, it has nothing to do with Howard.
Oh wow.
It just
this whole time I'm like, man, Howard, man, Howard.
No. If you ever have a chance, go to thoward.org, look them up. They are amazing, and they have this gala every year that's probably not going to happen this year because of everything going on with the pandemic, but they have a gala every year where they raise money for the organization and big names show up. They actually had me host it one year, which was amazing, with another T Howard alum. So there are just so many amazing things. Yes, it was.
I remember one year I got an award from the School of Business, and the fact that I got so much love for Howard, just like you probably have love for that foundation. I mean, it was just like, y'all want me to do this? Cool, let's get it popping. That's dope. So
yeah,
you did the T Howard Foundation. I mean, and obviously, it gave you some opportunities to get paid doing this. I mean, what type of emotions do you go through knowing that you're gonna be in a field that doesn't pay? It's like no middle class kind of in that field. It's like you low end, and then overnight you can get a phone call, hey, we need you to move to New York or Chicago and, you know, you go from making a super modest salary to now you killing it. Like, emotionally, what was that like as you were, you know, preparing yourself to be a professional in that career?
Do you want me to be honest?
Yeah, sure.
So, I would love to give the you know, the lovely answer of I was positive all the way through. It was wonderful. But I'm going to be honest, I thought about going to law school after I was done with my second market in Louisville. I actually took the LSAT. I did okay on the LSAT. I didn't do hot. I could have taken it another time. I thought about taking it another time.
You thought about becoming a lawyer even after you were starting in your career.
Yeah, I thought about, because I was like, you know, this is hard. It's no
Tell
one
me
really
like a day in the life, because
yeah.
When I watch a news report, I'm like, oh man, they cute. You know, they get to report on these cool stories. You know, they popular. They get paid. They look good. You know, what is it like being in those small markets?
Oh man. A day in the life. Oh, you want me to start from small market to medium market to then now a larger market? Okay, let me start from the small market day in the life. Like a market 178, market sizes are based on population. So there are really no people watching when you're in the small market. The market 178, the only thing there was James Madison University. And when the kids are not there, that's even less people. So, you know, I shot my own stuff. I wrote my own stuff. I was driving myself. Anybody who knows me knows I hate driving.
Wow.
I was just driving
your own self.
No, but you know, it's not bad. That's not what makes it bad. What makes it bad, driving when you're on deadline, you're writing in your mind, you're driving back to the station to put the story together, and you're on deadline. It's a different kind of beast. It's a different kind of beast. And so that was really hard. And then doing your own makeup, you're responsible. You feel like a makeup artist, you feel like a stylist, you feel like a producer. And at one point I was anchoring too, which anchoring in a small market means you're producing the entire show, and then you're pedaling the show, which means you're pushing on a pedal to read the teleprompter all at the same time. It feels like you've done 5 jobs in one day. And I was making less than I made in college. Let's just throw that out there.
Really?
Yes, I had 2 jobs in college, making probably about $20 an hour. And then my first job was $10 an hour. So yeah. My second job, I was able to double my salary, thankfully. And I felt like I was, you know, making strides. But the difficult part about being a general assignment reporter is that you're covering any and everything. So your emotions are consistently all over the place most of the times.
This segment is sponsored by www.homecoming@howard.com. Whether events, notification, or apparel, we are your one-stop shop for the ultimate alumni and friends homecoming experience. So you were telling me about the small market days, the good old days when you were just doing it for the love of just reporting honest news to the people.
Yes, that, and I knew I was young and I didn't have any children or any mouths to feed. So yes, I was just there.
So do a lot of people like give up at that stage, or do people?
Oh yes.
Oh really?
Yes, there's a lot of giving up in this industry. I mean, when you think about it, you can understand why people give up. There are a lot of things that they don't talk about in the industry that it should probably be addressed more. There are a lot of mental health concerns. There are a lot of, yes, I mean, people are dealing with very stressful situations.
What's stressful about reporting the news?
Okay, Josh, you've clearly never been in a newsroom. What's stressful about? It's just the things that behind the scenes that people don't see. The fact that you're not making any money. A lot of people are struggling. The fact that you're covering and talking to people, and if you're an empath, like a lot of people are, and you're absorbing all that energy and all those problems, and some of them go home with that stuff. So yeah, that's really hard. That's really hard. So you have to take
so some
care
of these stories, like
health.
when you're reporting them, they weigh on you a little bit.
Oh yes.
Is it like pressure from people in the community, like, hey, you need to tell it tell it this way, or
oh my goodness, I love it. I love the you need to tell it this way people, because those people crack me up every time, because I'm like, I don't know what else to say to you, but I do my job, and if people like it, great. If they don't, great.
so okay, so we're talking about this small market you're in, not making no money, very
Yeah.
stressful, but you come from Howard, you come from that cloth, you come from the Mecca. It's all good. So you got to keep persevering. So what's the demographic of this place that you're in?
Oh man, Josh, these are great questions. These are great questions. You can't really find your shade of makeup or foundation. Let's put it that way. You can't really find a hair salon. It's very limited when you to options for people that look like you, to be honest.
So that's tough socially too.
That's tough. So yes, I have spent many
being at the Mecca, seeing every shade and color of melanin there is to see.
Man, it was quite a culture shock.
Man,
oh,
so
it's
how
also
do you deal with that? So
yeah.
Tell me, you driving, you writing the stories in your head. You got to do honest reporting. At the same time, you trying to, not necessarily, I mean, you're trying to do a great job,
right?
Because I guess it's kind of where that acting comes in to play, where you got to kind of have like
you got to put on face
and make it happen. And I'm sure there is a fair amount of pressure to have some type of get ratings or whatever. Like, walk me through a day in a life, because I'm sure your experience is different from, if you're by yourself. Like, what is that like?
So currently?
No, just in that small market.
Oh, that small market. You try to bring me back there again.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a therapy session.
It was very rough. I will say at the time.
What time you getting up?
Oh, I've always been on the later shows. So that's really the blessing. Mm-hmm. The time is not the problem. I was getting up probably 10:30, 11 when I had no discipline. So I was getting up at a later time because my show, I was a nightside reporter. So I was getting in at 3 p.m. So now I mean, the same thing. I've been a nightside reporter most of my career.
Is that considered prime time, or is prime time?
I don't know if it's considered, these days I would say mornings are pretty popular. Mornings are when we get a lot of our viewers. We get a fair amount of viewers nightside too. I will say mornings and nights are pretty popular, and middays too.
So what are considered big stories in these small markets that are?
Oh man, that's the thing. That's the thing, Josh. Josh, finding a story in a small market is like digging through a bunch of beauty products that you don't know where anything is. Basically, it's very hard because there are a lot of people. One are very, there's not a lot of crime. There's nothing. No one's really doing anything. But the nice thing is, once you start developing connections in those smaller markets and really getting to know people share really great story ideas with you, and then you start developing your reporting chops that way. So that was the nice thing. And to be honest, I was only there for 10 months, even though it felt like a year. I have stories for days about this first market, but but I will say I was dating a guy that was very understanding at the time. That was great. He was.
Shout out to him.
I know. Shout out to him. He was a Howard guy.
Shout out to that man.
Not anymore working. It's not working anymore. But at the time, it was great because he would visit me and he would try to help me stay sane. So that was, But the hard part about the small market, you got to think outside the box. You got to, localize big stories that you may see nationally, like. We did a lot of political stories because a lot of people, we were in Virginia. So a lot of people were very fascinated with what's happening in DC and how it impacts them locally. So I localized a lot of national stories. Occasionally we would have some, offbeat stories. Like I was telling you about the mom who dressed her son as a KKK member. That went viral. I did interview this woman.
I mean, what is that like?
But I did have a photographer that day. I will say that day they sent me with a photographer. That was helpful. I had a photographer that day. That would probably be your last day.
She talking to a black woman. I mean, was she justifying this? Or what year was this anyway? Was this what
What year was
1908
this? So this
or
was like
2008?
2014. This was
Oh
like
wow.
2014 where I started I started working in news a month before I graduated. So I went back for graduation and walked, and then but yeah, I was working straight out of school. And so yeah, it was just fascinating to interview that woman
So if
because
you find yourself having to like chase stories, that is it more important to tell stuff that you think is newsworthy, or things that people are gonna click on and resonate with the masses? Because something like that,
yeah.
child dressing up like a Ku Klux Klan person, like is that news, or is that more so on the side of, hey, people are gonna tune in and hear about it?
I thought it was news because a lot of people were once there's a community interest, and we
Mhm.
look for stories that a lot of people are talking about. I will say that that is what I classify. That's why I classified it as news. A lot of people were outraged by it. A lot of people were really upset. We talked to the woman who started the Facebook thread about why she thought it was wrong, and then we talked to the woman about why she did it. So it was both sides, and I thought it was newsworthy mainly because of the controversy. So I personally look for stories that I'm drawn to. And so I pitch a lot of stories that I'm drawn to, like stories that really tell you more about communities that are underrepresented and voices that are underrepresented. I think that's very important, especially considering, just the media landscape and the fact that uh yeah, minorities are kind of hard to find in newsrooms. So whenever I can amplify voices that are underrepresented, I feel like I'm doing justice to
So
my
is
job.
that something that you're conscious of when you report?
Oh yes. I'm very conscious of the fact that um when people watch the news, sometimes they are looking for people who don't they don't see every day. And I try to make sure that I have a diverse amount of voices in my stories. I try to make sure I touch on pretty much every community if I can, in representing any story that I put out there. Uh, so it is tough, but I definitely am very cognizant of the fact that giving a voice to the voiceless is something that is extremely important.
Man, so you go from, you know, you go from Howard, you go to the small town. At what point do you win an Emmy? Where is that in your career?
That didn't happen until I honestly didn't apply in the first few markets that I was in. Like I said, I wasn't making much money, and I wasn't
What's that mean? Much money? 'Cause what does that mean? Much.
I wasn't making enough money. I mean, my first job, I will definitely tell you, if you are considering taking a small market job, you definitely want to keep your parents close. They were definitely helping me my first job. They were like, "Are you okay? Are you eating?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm eating." But I'm barely hanging on most months in my first market. Like I said, I was only there for 10 months because after a while, I didn't know
You
how
couldn't
much.
do it anymore, huh?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how much more I can do of this. It felt like the longest 10 months though, I promise you.
Really, it was that stressful.
It was that stressful. I mean, I'm not from a small town. So, I mean, even though I'm from a small island, it didn't feel small. I've never been to a small town. And that felt yeah, I don't know. Jamaica didn't feel that small. One
So when
station
do
for the
you win an
city.
Emmy? At what point do you get
And
an
when I
Emmy?
get to DC, um, in the first year that I moved back to DC with the help of so many people who convinced me to stay in the industry, because, like I said, I wanted to go to law school. I was,
Mm.
I was on the verge of calling it quits because, one, like I said, it's just being a journalist assignment reporter. It's a different beast
You
because you're
stuck with
telling.
it. You
It's
stuck with it. Some
I
people made you
stuck.
stick with it.
My girlfriend, who was like, "You do not want to go to law school."
Did somebody find you or discover you, or you just applying other places?
So for my first job or my second or third
Like
jobs?
for the when you got to DC. Like, how did that
Okay,
go?
so for my third job here in DC, I no, my girlfriend. So the funny thing is, my girlfriend actually got this job first, and she knew how much I love DC. I love DC. I love DC. I love me some DC. She knew how much I love DC, and so she got the job. She didn't want the job because she got another job that was a lot better than this job. No offense. And she was gonna, probably for her situation, what she was doing and what she wanted to do. So she was like, you know what? Why don't you just hook up with my agent and see, if he could get you the same job? I'm like, sure, why not? I have nothing to lose at this point. I'm packing up all my stuff. I'm moving back to DC regardless to go to law school or not. So that was my whole philosophy. I was like, it's DC or nothing. I told myself DC or nothing and prayer. So I prayed about it. I said DC or nothing. I know. God was just like, you know what? I hear your prayers. I don't know what I did to deserve all this goodness. This story is kind of crazy. My whole journey has been kind of crazy. But anyways, so my girlfriend hooked me up with her agent. He hooked me up with an interview. I got the job. And that was pretty much a lot of it. My second job, my boss found me on YouTube. And I didn't need it.
Those experiences kind of helped you, appreciate where you are now and probably go a little bit harder when times get a little bit rough.
Yes, for sure. I will say sometimes I need to be a whole lot more grateful. I think everyone should be. But sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of being strong. Sometimes it gets hard. It always gets hard, especially when I don't think people realize how difficult it is when you are a single young woman who for the most part has attained a decent amount of success in a short amount of time. It feels overwhelming, and it sometimes gets a little bit lonely because you're like, dang, it'd be nice to share this success with someone. So that part has been hard, but for the most part,
let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed, even in my life, I'm an entrepreneur, and you have these dreams about getting to a certain level. And like, man, if I get there, that's all I need. And then you get there, and you kind of still want more. But at the same time, you get to a certain level, and you realize getting to that level is tough. But just maintaining, the maintenance that's required on a day-to-day basis of being great, being consistent, that can be very tough. And even to your point, being single, I'm fortunate to have a wife and have a family. I'm back in Chicago, so I'm from Chicago, so I have a lot of support here. Talk about, what you just alluded to, being successful. And it's not like you just got the success overnight. It happened in a short amount of time, but you definitely got beat up over that short amount of time. Like, how is that, mentally, what motivates you? Like, where do you pull from to stay motivated so that you can go in and be great?
Lately, I've been doing a lot of meditation. Someone pointed out that I needed to do more a couple months ago because I was starting to get very when you're used to, let me back up. When you're used to moving around a lot, it's hard not to move around a lot after that. I find that I was getting very anxious about what's next. I was just like, oh, what's next? Because for the last 6 years, I've just been what's next every 2 years. Mm-hmm. So now I've reached a point where it's like, okay, all right. It's not about what's next anymore because, you've done what you really wanted to do, which was get back to DC. I really just wanted to move back to DC. This was my dream. It's been a long time goal for me. And so, meditation has really helped out. Writing has really helped out. I've gotten back to doing a lot more writing. I've been doing a passion project, which helps out with
your blog.
Yeah, cool. I've been trying to do more blogging. I'm sorry, guys, if I'm not consistent. It's very hard in between trying to do a monthly podcast and then trying to stay up with everything that goes on at work. Is very tough to do both. But eventually, I will find a sweet spot once I haven't found that sweet spot. But anyways, doing a lot more writing, sharing a lot more of my passion projects has really helped. Also, family, although I really miss them because they're kind of far. That is really hard. Having family be far away is tough. But, and also, keeping my faith. My mom is very spiritual, and she always, cheers me on and tells me, keep going. Remember, why you started, all that good stuff. So having very supportive parents and family members really helps. Also, my friends are really great. I have a lot of great connections in this industry with just people who are equally as driven. I think it's very important to keep people around you who are just motivated all the way around. And, they share that good vibe and that good energy with you. So that's been really helpful. Those are the things that are really helping out right now. And I have other goals outside of just TV news right now. Eventually some real estate, eventually things like that. So trying to remember that I have been very blessed and this is not just the end of the road for me. Definitely, just because. Definitely. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're doing your thing. I mean, I obviously before this interview, I looked up a lot of stuff about you on social media, online. I mean, and it's just funny how you can just look at pictures. Man, this person's killing it. Man, she's only this age. She's covering news in the DMV. There's so much going on in that area, whether it's politics or national news. It's the capital of America. And then when you get to know a person, you're like, hey, I'm trying to get into real estate.
Yeah.
I miss my family. You're talking about things that everyone can identify with, and it's cool to hear that you still have other goals that you want to accomplish. Now when I was reading about some of the Emmys that you received, and I'm not 100% sure how the Emmy process works and what that.
You want me to break it down real quick?
Yeah, tell me.
I love the fact that the Emmys highlights so many great things about the industry and people who deserve to be recognized. One thing I do think is hard and maybe doesn't encourage everyone to apply is the money part. You really got to pay for applying and it's not cheap. You're talking about a membership fee, then you're talking about the price of to enter for the Emmys per entry sometimes could be $125 to I think the late fee is like might be $50 more. Don't quote me on that, but it is over $100 per entry. And so I do think that doesn't encourage everyone to apply. So sometimes people don't feel encouraged to apply, but if you are in a small market, mid-sized market, and you have some savings, I do encourage you to put your work in and apply, and hopefully you'll win.
So you have to pay, you apply. So is it like what makes a person qualified to even apply?
They're really what makes you qualified. One, you're working in they have different chapters, so you're working in the region where that chapter covers. So here I believe it's the Mid-Atlantic. Don't quote me on that. And so you apply through your chapter that you're in, and then it's judged by other chapters around the country, and so they judge your work. So you're applying only if you're a professional working in the, you can apply if you're a student too. You can apply in college, but that rarely happens. Wow. I've never seen many entries. I wish I had known that while I was at Howard. That would have been nice.
So when you apply, is it certain categories that you apply in, and then like only one person can win in that category?
Yes. So it's kind of like you can watch it live when it comes up. I think the next one is in June. It may be a virtual show, but they always have the link to it. You can watch the show. It's kind of like watching the real Emmys for TV shows and movies. You have a category with a bunch of nominees, and then one group is selected. So our station was selected for all the categories that I won for. So because I was a contributing member of the team, I received an Emmy for the coverage. And yeah, I think this year I only entered one. Last year I was nominated twice and I didn't win because of the crazy part is last year I entered in several categories that didn't win, but the category I didn't enter in, even though I was a participant in, that won, but I didn't pay for it, so I didn't get a trophy. But basically, it's all the luck of the draw at this point.
So you have 3 of them, and I saw one of the ones that you Emmys that you got was reporting on that shooting that happened at that softball game.
Yeah,
that's a super tragedy, and I know you talked about sometimes that stuff comes home with you. But what was like, what did you learn from that?
I don't know if in those moments you just learn that the community is really amazing, especially here in the DMV. We have an amazing community.
Like, we could back up. Tell what was that Emmy for again?
One was I got 3 right now. One for the Capitol Gazette shooting, and rest in peace to all those people that lost their lives, and the baseball park shooting where Congressman Scalise was shot, and thankfully he survived. And the other one was for the opening of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We did a great special about that. So yeah, it's tough to see what happens in the blink of an eye, because that was, we looked around with breaking news. It's so crazy to watch it unfold. I mean, it happens and everyone's on top of it, but it's just sad to see that happen in your backyard in Alexandria. So
how does that go? Like, yeah. I mean, it's a huge story. I'm in Chicago. I mean, the story is huge. How do you piece those stories together in a way that's, honest, objective? But it's like you have to talk to the police. You got to get like witnesses. Like, how does that process work of working on a story like that and kind of reporting it like as it happens?
I think the most important thing that I try to remember when I'm covering those stories is 1, humility, 2, just remembering the story is never about me. It's about getting the facts and putting them in front of people and having people decide what they want to think. I have no desire to tell people what to think. So I usually just, when I get there, I look around. The best part about being a reporter is using my observation and being as observant as possible. So I look around, I scan what's going on around me. I'm telling you what I'm seeing and what people are feeling, not what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing and what people are feeling. So when I show up, I'm telling you, look, this is a tragedy. This is what people are seeing right now. The police are everywhere. We know what we know. Tell you what we know. We know 2 people are shot, or 1 person was shot. We know the gunman was arrested. We don't know. We also tell you what we don't know. We don't know if a person is in custody at this time. Like, whatever the case may be, just be as honest as possible and be as observant as possible is what
like in a story like that, do you have to reach out to like their family members and
that's always the hard part.
How invasive?
I try not to be, especially in the first 24 hours of someone going through something like that. I try not to make any calls
because you got pressure from like your bosses too. Like, hey,
yeah,
we want to beat NBC, but at the same time, you probably like, yo, let's let them grieve for a little while. But yeah, because it was kind of like when that Kobe thing happened, like TMZ, boom, was on it. So
that was so crazy to me. That I'm not going to touch on, but I did not like that whole coverage. I didn't appreciate how quickly that news came out and how it was shared. But
how far do you go when you're trying to report something that's super important to the world, but maybe to that family, they still grieving and trying to come to grips with reality?
Yeah, I think it's very important to be respectful of people when they're grieving. I understand that sometimes we have to reach out to loved ones during difficult times, and I really try my hardest not to be the first one. Because it's not something you want to be first on. Who wants to make that first phone call asking someone if they were interested in doing an interview when they just lost someone, you know? Mm-hmm. So I try not to focus on that part initially. What I'm focusing on is getting you as much information as possible from the scene and letting you know what we know and what has happened as much as possible. But those situations, like I said, it's very hard to cover because it's a lot of emotion, a lot of raw emotion. And thankfully, in like a high profile story like that, people will come forward right away because they know the media is looking for information. And so we didn't really have to reach out to family members for something like that because we had lawmakers who were willing to speak on the issue, especially being in the nation's capital. That was
what about? I mean, yeah. What about when something like that happens and then it turns into like a political thing where now people are like, well, that's why, this wouldn't have happened if they would all had guns, or if
that part I just ignore because I don't have anything to do with it. Yeah, that part that's hard. Politics is hard. Being in a very political city is tough, but I try to just keep it objective and stick to the facts. And comments and stuff like that on Facebook and Twitter, I don't really read them unless I have to, but I try to avoid those type of comments.
Well, that's interesting. I've always wanted to know like how those stories unfold, especially when they're happening, because when they happen, like you said, you try to get to somebody that's being objective. But I mean, on the flip side, some good news: you got an Emmy for the Black History Museum.
Yeah, I love that.
That's positive. I mean, that was such a big deal coming to DC, and I remember the first time I tried to go to that museum. I thought you could just walk in. And they was like, nah, man, you got to make reservations. But, talk about that story and, just from a historical perspective, how, how important that a story like that is for you.
Yeah, it was so nice to be a part of history. I did so many live hits for other stations across the country for that story, which was so nice because our network or the company.
Live hit is what?
A live hit is when you are like right now, what we're doing. This is live. This, it's happening in real time. Like when you see those versus battles, that's live, So pretty much anything is happening in real time. Shout out to Teddy Riley and technical difficulties. So exactly, like that's live TV, anything that's happening in real time, anything that you really can't go back and edit and before you put it on air. So anyways, I did several live hits just talking about the museum and the significance. And then we did a great story with actually the gentleman who created this beautiful painting, who is also a Howard alum. Unfortunately, he passed away though. So we did a story with him at his Hyattsville home, just talking about the painting that he had up in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Dr. Driscoll is the artist's name. He just passed away. He actually has a center named after him at the University of Maryland. He gave me a copy of this painting and I just hung it up in my room recently. So I'm very excited about that. So yeah, just being able to be a part of history and to see how people gravitated to that museum, it was amazing. I mean, internationally, so many people from across the world. I mean, they had, celebrations leading up to it. And I've done so many cool stories about the museum, and it's just so neat to see how it's still contributing to DC and drawing so many people from all around the world.
That's nice. So tell me, I guess we could try to get lighter because that one story kind of brought things down. But that's awesome about the Black History Museum. Talk about. I know you told me a crazy story about the Klansmen and things like that. What are some things, or like what are you hoping to achieve in the future? of your career? I mean, where do you see yourself going? If we fast forward, 10 years from now, professionally.
I know you you wanted to ask this question, and I'm still thinking about that. That's a question I get a lot. Where are you going? What do you want to do? And to be honest, my answer is always the same. I'm gonna go where God leads me. I am riding this wave of telling great stories that touch me and hopefully touch others. My goal is to tell the most positive story possible, at least 3 times a week. Hopefully I can share some positive stories at least 3 times a week, even though right now that doesn't look like the case because of the pandemic. We're sharing a lot more stories about the reality of things, and that's tough. So where do I want to go? I want to go where God leads me, and hopefully it's always amazing where he leads me, so I'm not worried.
Okay. Well, I want to get your opinion on this. So I'm sure, are you considered a journalist or anchor woman? What is that?
So I consider myself just a journalist. I fill in anchor sometimes. Sometimes you may see me anchoring. Lately I've been doing some anchoring, but mostly I'm reporting, putting together packages, which are basically sound bites and tracks, and edit it all together to be a nice package. That's why they call it a package. I'm doing mostly a lot of that. I also write for the web, so I post my stories on the website. So I'm doing anything and everything that has to do with journalism, which is what I wanted to do. As long as I'm documenting things, I think I'll be happy.
Cool. So as a journalist, as an experienced person, you reported probably hundreds of, if not thousands of stories by now. What do you think about Black Twitter, Black Internet's reaction to how they came at Gayle after she interviewed, I think it was Lisa Leslie, and I was like right after he died, like days after he died, and he brought that up. Because on one end, I mean, maybe a part of me did want to know about that, but I wouldn't have asked that question. Like, how's the industry like behind the scenes? How do you guys view questions like that?
I don't think so. With interviewing and with questions, I think it's subjective. I don't think there's any right way to do it. I don't think there's any wrong way to do it. Like you said, it depends on the mood. It depends on what's going on at the time. I think Gayle was doing her job at the time, and whether she formulated that question in the right way is subjective. It's up to you to decide if you want to be upset by it. I try not to let a lot of things upset me. I already have a lot on my plate. So I wasn't terribly upset by the situation. I think what people were most upset about was how the question was formulated. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Josh?
I think I'm glad it wasn't me that asked the question. I think, I mean, he wasn't even in the ground yet, so I think it was timing. The timing was horrible, and it's also something that happened, almost 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I think it could have been asked at that point, but I guess it's just interesting how. But I think Snoop's response to it made it just put gasoline on whatever fire was already.
Oh my goodness.
And that kind of made me pick a side. So once she asked the question, I thought that was a bogus question. But then when I saw Snoop's response to it, I kind of sided with her because I thought he took it too far. That's just my opinion.
Like I said, I'm not allowing anything to disrupt my peace. I think a lot of people go on social media and they get too excited about things that they really should not even be excited about. To be honest, I think we all need to just take a chill pill and just when you get on social media, especially, like, people are reading what you're writing. It took me a long time to figure that out because I was still sometimes I write tweets that aren't controversial or anything like that, but when you have a platform and you have influence, you gotta be so careful with what
Oh
you put
yeah,
out
bro.
there.
You know what? It's
People,
funny because
yeah,
I put up this post about
yeah,
something. And, I run that Howard alumni Instagram, so I put up something about it was like a repost, like use this time to be working hard and being creative, and then like the first comment was like, stop trying to shame people. People are dealing with COVID and losing jobs, and next thing you know, a million people started co-signing on it. I was like, yo, I was just trying to be like motivational, but I could see how that could, be insensitive. So of course I took it down.
yeah. It's a like a fine line.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think about tweeting something. I don't even bother tweeting it. I keep most of the things I think off Twitter because people are very sensitive. And that's another difficult part about the media landscape nowadays is, there are a lot of people who get offended. Um, you really got to be careful about every word matters. Every
Do you feel
single
pressure
word.
to like not be objective? Because what I've noticed
Oh
over
no,
time,
to not be objective.
well, and this is why I say that because
Yeah.
even I noticed it over time, like outlets like Fox News have become super popular because they've been allowed to just give their opinions. CNN is like you kind of being forced to like pick a side. And even when I watched Sports Center, it used to be, they report on the news, what they're seeing. Now it's almost like entertainment news where they're like showing their personality, being a little bit more over the top, like that's crazy. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like these are journalists. Like if you watch, I watch Stephen A lot, and he gets into these like debates, and I feel like I'm wondering, do you ever feel that type of pressure, or is like your role strictly to just be as objective as possible?
I prefer to just be objective. I've noticed with the trend that you're talking about, and I think you can only play those games when you're on a certain level. I mean, there's a difference level between a network and a local station. A local station is a lot smaller than a network station. I think with a network station, also there may be different rules written into your contract. You may be more flexible in certain ways. With local TV, I think it's mostly objective, thankfully. And I like local. I really do. I think we speak to the community, and we, for the most part, are just sharing the facts. So
Cool. How much influence do you have over stories and like that come across your way, and then how much thought do you give in terms of like, man, I don't want to report this because it puts my community in a bad light versus, this is the news, I need to report it. Like how much of that enters your consciousness when you're speaking?
thankfully, we have a great team, and I really think we have a great team. I find that everyone in my newsroom is pretty respectful. I can't speak for every station, but I find that my station is pretty respectful behind the scenes. Everyone is very cognizant of, imagery and what we're putting out, thankfully.
Because I hate when I watch the news and they're like, we have an eyewitness here, Tyrone Jenkins. Tyrone, tell us what happened. Like,
What's wrong with the name Tyrone Jenkins, Josh?
It's just a stereotypical name of like somebody that's black that's about to say something ignorant, Like it was that story in Ohio where that I think it was some white women that were being held captive in that house. And so I don't you don't remember the story? They were being held captive. They got kidnapped by this guy. And so then they somehow got out. Okay, they were kidnapped by a white guy. But they were gone for like 2 months. They break out of the house and they run to this black dude, and his response is like classic. And they like, and the news reporter's like, how did you know that something was going wrong? He was like, 2 white women running to a black man. Dead giveaway. Like it was just too funny, But
I think I did see that actually.
Is there like a, do you ever like you have this person that can give you information? You like, man, maybe I shouldn't put him on camera because it's gonna perpetuate a certain type of stereotype, or is it like, hey, this person is the best, you know, he legitimizes the story, so this person has to be heard?
I know exactly what you're saying. Exactly what you're saying. I do think there is a certain level of responsibility to not perpetuate certain stereotypes. And I will say this, just like how you have different companies, you know how you have a franchise and you got a McDonald's here and in a place that they just don't do the right things. They don't ever have the vanilla ice cream you want, blah, blah, blah. And you go to another McDonald's, they serve the best ice cream. They got all the vanilla soft ice creams that you want. It's the same thing with newsrooms. You may have a station in one city versus a station in another city, and it's just not the same quality because there's so many variables with us being humans. And the hiring process to fill a newsroom is very difficult. Like I said, some places may not pay as much. So then you got to think about the fact that they're hiring people that one may not be fully qualified for the job. Oh. And so it's you got to think about it just the same way. You are not going to get the same quality everywhere with the same newsrooms because of the franchise. Now being in a bigger city like DC, you're going to get a good quality content because we're in a higher market. We have more eyeballs. We have more advertising. We have, better leadership. But if you go to a smaller city where people aren't getting paid as much, they can barely find qualified people. So they may hire somebody who may not be as good, and you're going to get what you get. So no offense, but you might see stuff like what you were talking about.
So I got two closing questions before we go into this rapid fire round. If you're ready for. Yeah. So one, what do you say to the 18-year-old Anna that's coming into Howard, wants to get 3 Emmys? What do you say to this person right now as she prepares to come into Howard and let's say be a class of 2024? And she wants to be a journalist or what type of advice are you giving to help them accomplish your goal?
I would say continue being extremely laser focused on your goals, and don't get distracted by things like boys and parties and anything else that goes along with. That guy held you down he was great. Wonderful boyfriend. Yeah, he was a wonderful boyfriend, but I was laser focused.
Harrisonburg, Virginia. Now you want to act brand new that you back in DC. That's how they do you. Fellas, that's my advice to the fellas. She gonna get them grades. She like that thug now, but once she get that job, she dropping you, man. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Cut it out, Josh. Anyways, so funny. No, but continue being laser focused. Stay away from the things that are gonna take you away from your goals. Go hard for what you want, and definitely I will say the number one thing is protect your brand. Do not allow people to smear your name in any way by doing things that give them that power. I will say important. Yeah, your reputation is the only thing you got,
especially now with social media and stuff just being so big. Like you can't delete stuff, That's a good one.
Yep. Stay away from anything that will ruin your reputation. Remember that your name is your value. So
hard, though. How do you?
Yeah.
Man, like you're in college.
I know. Trust me.
Mistakes. Like who's thinking about their brand?
I was.
If you want to be Anna, you have to think about that.
I was thinking about that brand. Everything. I mean, you know how Howard is extremely political, and everything is dependent on who you know and how you are perceived by others. I definitely used that to my advantage. Like all 4 years, I was pretending like I was running for office for no reason. I remembered the, names. I remembered conversations. I wasn't saying anything that was going to put me in a bad light. I was, acting like I was a public figure before I was a public figure. So if you remember me from undergrad, you probably only remember the boring moments with me because I wasn't allowing you in anything else. I was
take us behind the scenes.
Yeah.
what's the dating? I mean, what's the dating life? Is that like when you meet someone? Is that like a conversation that you have? Like, yo, my brand is this. So
Yes,
don't.
yes, which is probably why I'm single. But this is the
Crazy.
conversation we're having. Like, look, you are a reflection of me. If you
Yeah.
are not willing to go that route, please leave me alone. I
So that's
don't.
a real conversation.
That is a real conversation.
Wow.
Like, I cannot be associated with anything crazy right now. I mean, especially at this level, being in the city for 4 years. In June next
So
month.
is that something that is talked about at your network, or is that something that you just know? Like,
I think there is a certain level of responsibility as a woman of color that is a lot higher, for,
mhm.
in my opinion, that it's a lot tougher. Um, at Howard, they say you have to work twice as hard. I do think you do have to work twice as hard at times.
Really, it's a lot of
Um,
people of color in your role, like at your level,
uh,
percentage wise.
I don't have the exact percentage, but uh, there is still a push to diversify newsrooms for sure.
Hmm.
So I think it's extremely important to carry myself in a certain way. And I've always been that way. My parents have always been big on that, anyways. So it's not anything different from what I learned growing up. So yeah, it's just very extremely important to me that I'm one, setting a good example for my sisters. I have a 13-year-old sister and a 24-year-old sister. I think she's 24. And yeah, I think I'm forgetting. No, she's 22. She's 22. Anyways,
She won't say
she's 22.
this.
Anyways, so yeah, it's extremely important for me to set an example for the younger generation, especially a lot of them watch us and they're like, oh, she looks like me. Oh, that's awesome.
Mm,
And when I see them in the community, I say, hey, I try to talk to them. So I think it's important for me to just remember that. So yeah, whenever I'm dating someone, I'm not going to just date someone just for the sake of it, which makes it harder, but
yeah,
it's challenge
and I know
accepted.
it's tough dating in DC too, right?
It's
I know that's tough.
a joke.
So last question. So I'd love to know, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I love that question.
40 years from now, you got out of the School of C. That's Kathy Hughes, right?
Yeah.
I
Formerly John H. Johnson during my
formerly
time.
John H. Johnson, back in the day, old Howard, right?
Yep.
And then Kathy Hughes. So I think it's cool that she was able to, get that in her name. Even her story is just
Amazing.
crazy. Like
Yeah.
I listened to it and read about it. I'm like, this can't be right. But yeah, she did that. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be that I worked my butt off and earned everything that I have, and that I'm leaving a legacy for my children and future generations, and that um, I represented not only my community but also my family in the best way possible. Um, when I think about my legacy, I think about just wanting to be better than the previous generation, which was already amazing. I thought my family did a great job already, but I just want to keep building on that and carrying on their name as best as I can.
This segment is sponsored by www.homecomingathoward.com. Whether events, notification, or apparel, we are your one-stop shop for the ultimate alumni and friends homecoming experience. Shout out to Jamaica.
Shout out to Jamrock, wonderful
Right.
Jamaica.
Okay, I hear it. I hear it a little bit. Okay, so I hope you did some studying about your alma mater. You're ready for these.
You did tell me to study.
For these questions. I'm gonna start off with an easy question, and this is trivia. So, what year was Howard founded?
1867. That's easy.
Very easy. Very easy. Very easy. Let me see another question. Here's a question for you. In in 2008, this Howard alum won Best Actress.
Was it Taraji?
Yeah.
I was like she's the main one.
How many schools and colleges does Howard have?
Oh, come on, Josh. You did not just do me like that.
Hey,
really?
I can't let you get 100.
Let me count through them. School of Pharmacy, School of Divinity, law school doesn't count. School of C, School of Business, theater arts, COAS. I would say 6 or 7.
They got 13.
13?
13. Yeah. I'm not going to name them, but
engineering, architecture,
you got arts and science.
The pharmacy school, I guess. Yeah, 13 sounds about right.
So yeah, we got schools. Next is rapid fire round. All right.
Oh,
this is rapid fire. So
I'm ready.
All right. So when you got to Howard, now for rapid fire, you can only give your answer. You cannot
I cannot elaborate.
No elaboration, if that's a word. No further explanation. You just have to give me that answer. So here's my first one. Greeks or athletes?
Greeks.
Homecoming or graduation?
Homecoming.
See, what was the style back then? Timberlands or Air Force Ones?
Air Force Ones.
Yardfest or tailgate?
Ooh, tailgate.
Drew Hall or Carver?
Drew.
Let's see, U Street or Adams Morgan?
Oh, U Street.
Okay. And you better get this one right. Georgia Avenue or 7th Street?
Why 7th Street? Georgia Avenue.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying. That's how I know you went to Howard. If you would have said something else. Here's the last one. Howard China or China Wonder?
Howard China.
Mambo sauce or barbecue sauce?
Mambo.
Okay, that sounds like a politically correct answer. You probably got no mambo sauce in your house right now.
Nope.
Okay, cool. Well, AnnaLysa, I really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah.
You're the only journalist that I've had so far. So
sure you'll have plenty more.
Yeah, we got a ton. We got a ton of your colleagues gonna be on the show. But this is pretty cool to get to spotlight you. Saw you on Instagram. Saw that validated thing. I said she must be important, so we got to get her on the show. So I thank you for following up with me, and hopefully I'll see you at homecoming, and we stay in touch.
Yes, if I could find you in the thousands of people that show up every year.
I'll be there. Well, if we even have homecoming,
I know this year it's up in the air, ain't it?
Yeah. But thanks again. What's your Instagram handle?
Yes, it's at AnnaLysa Gayle. My full name spelled out.
All right, so yeah, get in her DMs. You will get blocked.
Please don't
say something stupid, right?
Please
don't
get
blocked. You try to mess with her brand. You guys who are trying to, strive in your career to be great. AnnaLysa Gayle, I definitely thank you for joining me.
Yes, thanks, Josh.
I learned a lot. Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.